Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Talk With. First of all, Happy New Year. It's 2024 at the time of recording this. Hopefully, it will come out before 2025. So, I'm here joined by the incredible Josh Carr. Introduce yourself.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Happy New Year to everybody. It's been a while since I've done something like this. I'm Josh Carr. I am the host of Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast, which is currently on hiatus. And I'm also the creator of an upcoming audio series, The Peculiar Adventures of Doctor Who. So that's sort of me, and I generally just chat shit on Twitter about Doctor Who. That's
Oh,
sort
don't
of
we all? Don't we all?
yeah. I mean, my deal at the minute is that I've got a thing that I did that I haven't done for a year, and I've got a thing that I'm doing that's probably not going to be out for a year. So not really got a lot going on right now, other than just tweeting
Well,
memes about Doctor Who.
of course, outside of Doctor Who, recently you got engaged.
I
That's
did,
that's huge.
did.
And was that in New York? Did you get
It was in New York.
how did
Yes,
that go? How
it went well. I was a bit. I wasn't very nervous because I think me and Jess have been together for. It's actually our 10th anniversary next year. Not next year, next month. Sorry, next month is our 10th anniversary. So we've been together a while. So I think it's been on the cards for a while,
Well,
and I wasn't really expecting her to say no, but I
mm,
just wanted it to go well. And there are a few spanners in the works. I was meant to do it on a place called Bow Bridge,
mm.
um, but about 5 minutes before the engagement, I found out that it was closed temporarily for refurbishment. So I just had to pick a big rock. I just found a big rock in Central Park, um,
Mm.
and just popped the question. So yeah, it went well. I mean, I'm quite glad that I didn't do it on Bow Bridge, because I retroactively realised that
It's
that's
Angels
the
take.
bridge.
Mm.
It's in the Angels Take Manhattan. Yeah, it's the bridge that he does that like, proper slow mo
Oh,
run on. Um,
yeah.
and I don't think Jess would have forgiven me if I proposed to a Doctor Who film in location. We were right next to Bow Bridge, so I could see it, and I think that's enough for me. So
I mean that rock will always be sentimental to you now. If you ever go
it
back,
will.
that
If
rock,
if anyone's ever in Central Park and you find a big rock near Bow Bridge, that's where I got engaged.
a specific
Um,
rock, you've got to find the
I
rock.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't actually have a name or anything, so it's now known as Carr Rock.
Mm.
That's what I'm
Good
gonna
find,
I'm
good
gonna
find.
christen it
Mm.
Carr Rock.
My next question is usually my first one, actually. It's how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Um, I'm a bit knackered
Mm.
after Christmas and New Year, and a busy year and a busy end to the year with the proposal in New York, and we both got ill while we were in New York. So I'm only sort of just recovering from this lurgy that everybody's got. But
Mm.
no, I'm good. I think I'm in a very good place at the minute,
Ooh,
um,
what
which
would you
is nice, because yeah, I think I've taken a bit of time out specifically from the podcast,
Yeah.
um, which has done me good, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to have a break. I mean, that's mainly why I took a break from this one, is because
Yeah.
there was so many people wanting to be on it, and that's all well and good. It's all brilliant.
Mm,
I love, and I'll bring all those people on this time around, but it got a bit much here and there,
mm,
and it was so, I don't know, I just needed a break. I think sometimes
yeah.
you just need that break, and I'm glad you're in a good place, especially to
Yeah.
start the year. It's
It's
great.
it's a it's a lot doing a podcast.
Mm,
It seems like you're just chatting and that's about it. And that's the fun bit. But especially the kind of podcast that Who Knew is it, well, I mean, the main thing is that it's just me on my own.
mm,
And a lot of podcasts, not that I'm saying that they've got it easy by any stretch, because I'm sure that it comes with its own challenges. A lot of Doctor Who podcasts are minimum two hosts, like and I'm sure there is a delegation of duties there. But Who Knew has sort of just always been my baby, and I've looked after it. And I think it would be weird to introduce a co-host now.
Yeah.
So I think it would just change the dynamic of the whole show.
I mean,
So
speaking
yeah.
speaking of Who Knew, I mean, how would you introduce Who Knew to sort of new audiences? How would you introduce it to new viewers who haven't seen it yet?
Well, I would say it is a show in which I speak to the wonderful people in and around the world of Doctor Who
Mm.
about the show and what it means to them. We've had, I mean, so up until last year when I sort of took the break, we've had, if you count all of the sort of spin-offy episodes, it's like over 60 episodes that are out there. Um, and there's interviews with amazing people, loads of fan creators, so like YouTubers like Mr. TARDIS. I'm trying to remember everybody now. George Sheard, Dalecium,
Uh,
Davis,
yeah,
um,
so many.
and then there's people, thankfully, from the show that wanted to come on as well. It's like Rob Shearman,
Mm,
Sophie Aldred, Katie Manning,
yeah, blood.
uh, Douglas McKinnon.
Free dog
Um,
stage. I mean, that was insane.
yeah, yeah,
All
that
all of the
was
screen
that was
information.
big. Yeah, I don't forget about that one, but because it's not an episode, because it was sort of like it was Who Knew adjacent.
Yeah.
Um, but
It,
obviously it was at Comic-Con. But yeah, that was mad. That
what
was the maddest thing of all, was interviewing three doctors.
what
Yeah.
was it like sort of interviewing them on stage compared to like on call? Was there like how different was it? Were you starting?
Um, it was terrifying. It
Mm,
was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, like the build up to it was the scariest bit, because it sort of just came out of nowhere. Because I'd done panels before. I'd done one panel before,
like Dalek,
um,
I
with
remember.
the Daleks. Yeah, an audience of the Daleks, which was with Project Dalek, who are these amazing Dalek builders who build real life scale models of Daleks that you can hop in and drive around.
I mean, they're not.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yes, and it's so much fun doing that. And then I just got an email one day saying, actually, I emailed and asked, just shot in the dark, and I was like, oh, well, if you've got any Doctor Who guests. And then I got an email back that was just like, yeah, at the time it was actually, we've got three doctors, and it was a different combination of doctors to what I ended up with.
David
It went
Brown
from,
then, wasn't
yeah, I think David, it changed three or four times. There was three at one point, then there was four. So at one point, I think it was going to be, because Sylvester was meant to be there as well.
he? Oh yeah.
So it was going to be Sylv and uh, Peter Davison, Paul McGann, Colin Baker, and then Sylv dropped out, and then I think David Bradley was going to be there, and then only was doing one day or dropped out. So it went from three to four to three to a different three to four to three, um, which put a spanner in the works. And then obviously the week before, um, like 6 days before the panel, was Power of the Doctor, which then my plans completely went out the window for all the questions I was going to ask. And I was like, I might have one of the first interviews with all three of these, and they've all just come back to the show for the first time
You got
proper.
a chance, you got to ask
Yeah.
questions
And
you can.
and it was fun. It was really good fun. I mean, it was fun finding out about, like, sort of how strangely they shot it. Like,
Mm,
I can't remember who was before or who was after, but I think they filmed their bits like a year apart.
yeah.
And like the whole Paul McGann being in costume thing was like a logistical issue. It was literally just that was the costume that they had. They gave it him and he wore it.
Mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
and yeah, they were like, oh yeah, I got brought in to properly film mine, and I met Jodie, and then Paul McGann was like, I got dragged into a side room at maybe at a convention or something. And he was like, I got dragged into a side room, put in front of a green screen, and filmed it in 10 minutes. And it was like, it's a really good, it's a really fun interview.
It is.
Colin turns up halfway through because he was late because he was getting a Costa.
Oh,
So he crashes the stage halfway through, which is very funny. And also it was, yeah, it was very scary. I was very starstruck, even though I'd met all of them apart from I'd met Peter and Colin sort of as a fan at conventions before, but sort of a different beast having to, you know, have a chat with them. And also my time got cut short about 5 minutes before I went on stage. So it was meant to be a 50-minute panel and it ended up being about 25. So yeah, that was, and it was literally as the doctors got there, it was sort of a, yeah, you don't have as much time as you thought, so you're going to have to trim it back. So I had to wing it a little bit,
I
but it
think
went well.
job. I was in the
Thank
audience.
you.
I really really enjoyed it. I think you've done. I mean, yeah, I can't imagine how terrifying really it must be to go up there and
Mm,
you not one but three doctors. Uh,
yeah,
but and it's lovely seeing your podcast and lovely seeing all of the guests you get on. It's really, I think you provide a really nice environment for people to just chat away, and it's nice
thank you.
sort of delving into what Doctor Who means to people. It's a real, I don't know, it's
Mhm.
lovely to hear, and it's a lovely sort of question to ask.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, what does Doctor Who mean to you? As
Oof.
mentioned, that's yeah,
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
it's the question.
Um, that is the question. I ask everybody this question on my podcast, and I always dread it when people ask me.
You know,
Um,
I unintentionally started asking people that on the Christmassy talk with that I did, completely forgetting that that's your main question.
that's okay. Don't worry. Anyone can have it. You
Oh,
know, I'm not very precious about stuff like that. That's fine. Don't worry. Um, and yeah, I mean, what does Doctor Who mean to me? Everything, everything. It's just
right.
it's especially the past few years. Like I was a fan from 2005, and I was hooked instantly. And as a kid, I adored it. And I always loved the show, but I wasn't like as obsessive as I was. I had other hyperfixations that came and went,
Yeah,
but Doctor Who was always rumbling in the background, and I always watched it. I always loved it. And then, yeah, in lockdown, I watched all of Classic Who for the first time, and it just reignited.
yeah,
Like, I just became an 8-year-old again, basically, because I was watching new Doctor Who for the first time and remembering why I loved it so much. And it sort of coincided with me. This is a very rambly answer. I tell people to do this in a sentence. How mean is that? How mean is that? And I look at me going on for about 20 minutes, like, oh, Doctor Who means this. Anyway,
now carry on.
it's it sort of coincided with me um having a bit of a rough patch in lockdown
Hmm.
with my mental health and sort of over the past couple of years dealing with that um, and coming to terms with a lot of things and finding out that I'm neurodivergent. I've got ADHD, um, possibly autism. Who knows? I'm, trying to get a diagnosis, but it's impossible. Um, but yeah, like that all sort of coincided with me falling in love with Doctor Who again, and it sort of helped me with
Hmm.
that and helped me process it. And I saw a lot of the show in a new light, which I think you do with a lot of things when you find out that you're neurodivergent. Because like if you've gone undiagnosed for so many years, and then you watch all of these shows and you're like, oh, they're neurodivergent. And like I had it last year with um Matilda the musical, the new film that came out, and I've loved Matilda, the story of Matilda, and the old film with with Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Um, I've always loved it. My cat's called Matilda. Um, and when I was watching that, they really hammer home the sort of neurodivergent
Yeah.
subplot of that in the musical version, which has fast become my new favorite version because of that. And yeah, it really hit me. And I was like, oh wow, this is just like my whole mind has just been changed in the way that I view media and the way that I view Doctor Who. So
I would describe Doctor Who really as the quintessential neurodivergent show. I
oh, it
think
definitely is, isn't it? It's so neurodivergent.
it embodies
Um,
thing about being neurodivergent. I think the
hmm,
Doctor the character does as well. There's that one. I think it's a big Finnish audio where the 10th Doctor says to Rose, um, it might have been Rose. I might just be completely misremembering it on the spot, but he just says, I'm I can't remember the exact quote, but it's like, I'm definitely not neurotypical. I am nothing if
mhm.
not neurodivergent." And yeah, it is the quintessential neurodivergent show and perfect for hyperfixations and just
Yeah, I think there's a big Finnish audio where Donna's talking about the Doctor being
that.
ADHD as well, and I love that. Um, yeah, it's perfect for neurodivergent people, especially because there's just so much of it.
Mm.
Like you can't run out of it. There's so
Yeah,
much to learn. There's always new. I learn new things about Doctor Who every week,
I've
and
always
new weird stories and stuff like that, and scandals. There's so much to dive into.
oh, so much. I often describe it as the ultimate fixation, the ultimate
Yeah.
hyperfixation, because the way I see it is Doctor Who has already outlived me. There's already so much out there that I will not see in
Mm,
my time. And so
yeah.
there will always be new things to find, always be new things to love, whether it be niche or in your face or just it's such a gargantuan franchise and I love it for it.
Mm. I think actually, sorry to plug, but in my episode with Rob Shearman,
Mm,
in my interview with Rob Shearman, I which is a bit of a personal favorite of mine. I shouldn't have favorites, but Rob Shearman is probably my favorite writer of all time and has sort of inspired me to want to be a writer.
mm,
Um, and sort of focused me down that path, especially diving into his Big Finish stuff, which is just some of the best storytelling I've ever heard. Um, but he said a very similar thing about how Doctor Who was there before him, Doctor Who will be there long after him,
mm,
and there's something really reassuring to him about that.
yeah.
It's something that was destined from the moment it started to outlive him before he was even born. And he says something along those lines. Um, if I was going to recommend an episode of Who Knew to anybody, it would be that one because the
It,
audio's a bit dodgy, but oh god, what a chat and what a
honestly,
lovely, lovely guy as well. Like, how can you be that talented and also like
I
part of
know.
you just wishes like, oh, just be an asshole.
I,
But no, he's really, really nice as
it,
well. He's one of the nice, and everyone that I've interviewed has been lovely, to be honest.
yeah. But Robert Sherman, so approachable. I see him in the BFI bar quite a lot. At
Yeah.
BFI events, which are also some of the best events in the fandom out there,
Yes.
hands down. But Robert Shearman, he's really everyone in that bar is really approachable. But there's something about Robert Shearman, you'll just end up in a conversation that lasts 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and it will be
Yeah.
probably one of the most interesting conversations you've ever had.
Yeah. See, I've been to the BFI a lot and I've seen him at the BFI.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I find the BFI bar a terrifying place. I'm not very extra, even which sounds very weird as somebody who interviews people
yeah.
like on the regular. I'm not a very extroverted person,
Mm,
and sort of the idea of just spontaneous conversations terrifies me. It's fine with people that I know, like you and all the people that we chat to, but like I've seen him in the bar, and I've never gone up and chatted to him and gone, "Oh, do you remember me? I interviewed you
oh, you
a
should.
few years ago." But I know I should. I know, and there's loads of people that I'd love to speak to. I'd love to speak like Stephen Noonan's always there. I'd love to chat to him,
I
and
I
you know,
Steve,
Scott Hancock, and that I'd love to chat to all of those guys. But I'm you know, I maybe I will one day. You know,
I
I said I'm working stuff out, but I've still got things to work on in here. So yeah.
it takes time to get
Mm,
things like that and get used to, impromptu, sort of conversations like that. It can take a lot
mm,
of time. Like Stephen Noonan is one of the he's one of the loveliest people I've ever met. I
mm.
spoke to him. I think I've only seen him at one, and it was God, which one was it? Sea Devils, the Sea Devils, I think.
Yeah, I was there too. Yeah,
And I spoke to Stephen Noonan, and it was like quite late in the night, and we must have spoke for about an hour, and we spoke about how brilliant Love and Monsters is. We spoke about the nuance of the first Doctor era. We had a really personal
yeah.
conversation about stuff that was happening about the time and mental health and what's it like venturing into the industry as well. Our shared love for Doctor Who and what it means to us. And
Mm,
it was in that moment, that conversation was kind of like a mini podcast. It was a talk with. Uh,
yeah,
and I think the thing that is brilliant about the BFI bar and the talk with is that it gives me a chance to sort of network and speak to all these brilliant people and
yeah.
informal settings and just get to know
And
people.
that sort of feeds into. I mean, my one experience with Stephen Noonan is that him and his team absolutely battered me at Quiz of Rassilon. Me and Richard, Clever Dick Films,
Mm.
were on a team on our own, and then we looked to our right and we saw that it was a team with an actual doctor and multiple Big Finish writers, and we were like, we might be slightly out of our depth here.
Just
The Quiz of Rassilon is horrible. It's so hard.
it's so difficult.
It's
I don't
ridiculously hard.
I don't think I've ever gotten a question right. It's
No, I don't. I've barely got anything right on Quiz of Rassilon.
I love it, but it's
Um,
so difficult.
but like what you said there with like the networking thing, that's sort of why it was part of the reason why I sort of stepped back from Hunu as well. Is like I especially that Sea Devils one, I really struggled because like it was the pressure that I should be networking because of the podcast. Like my brain was just screaming at me like, this is an opportunity. And it's like, I don't want it to be an opportunity. I just want to sit and have a drink with my mates and talk about Sea Devils and the Master watching the Wombles. Isn't it Womble? No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's
And
the
it's
clam the
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 pink
clam the clangers. The
plank.
clangers.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. I just want to chat about that. I don't want to have to pressure myself to for it to be a networking thing. And that was sort of
That's
one contributing factor to me taking a break from the show. I think I just got very overwhelmed by it all,
I
and it
think
all became a bit too much.
when it
So,
comes to BFI for me, from my perspective, uh, I am quite extroverted when I'm in a comfortable
mhm.
setting. When I'm in so I think it says a lot about events like Utopia, the Phantom event, and the BFI, where I felt completely comfortable to the point in which a lot of the time it doesn't really feel like networking. It feels like I'm going up to
Yeah.
just talking, and occasionally products and not products, projects and aspirations and sort of where I want to go comes up, and it comes up naturally because it kind of it's like these people don't bite. That's how I view it. I think
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah. Of course they don't. Like,
it,
as I like, you'd almost think that from my reaction that I'd had bad experiences with people, but I haven't. Like, I've never had a bad experience, but it's more just an internal thing of
mm,
um, just the pressure for it to be good
yeah,
and and to be the best it can be all
mm,
the time. Like, I think the tipping point for me stopping for a while was the last episode, proper episode that went out was with Matt from Full Fat Videos, which is a great chat. We'd wanted to do it for ages and finally got the schedules aligned and it worked. And it was great. And it was really interesting. And it was the edit that just killed me. And I just got
yeah,
really obsessive in the
That was
edit about every single little noise, every pop, every thing. I actually worked out it had as many cuts. There are as many cuts and edits in that podcast as there are in a majority of Hollywood films that are released. There was over 1,000 edits in that podcast. Like
oh
I went into I got tunnel vision and I got obsessive and I just burnt out and I was like I can't do this.
that
Like it was like that no amount of quality, and I was very happy with the edit. It came out very well, but and it performed very well. But I was like, I could have just put the audio out as it was, and people still probably would have listened. I may not have got as many listeners, and people may not have listened to the whole thing because people might have stopped if the audio was a bit dodgy in a place or something. But I
yeah.
just got in my own head about it, and yeah, I got a bit of an unhealthy relationship with the podcast, so I had to cut it off,
Yeah, I
which is a
think
shame because I love doing it. But
sounds of it, it does sound for the best for your own mental health. But
yeah,
a lot of the time you have to prioritize, well, all the time I'd say prioritize that over
hmm,
everything. Um, Before I go on to the next question, of course, yeah, it is when it comes to perfectionism with fan projects and podcasts, it can sometimes remove the fun of it. And I feel like
yeah,
and that's what happened with me with this actually was
hmm,
I have a few that are unreleased from a year ago that are outdated because the edit the edit just became I I
hmm,
tend to leave these mostly unedited, but it was just and when I was watching it back, I just kind of something hit. I just couldn't bring myself to getting them out or editing, and I felt
yeah. It's the same with me. I've got two episodes that are unreleased as well. I and one that well both. I've got one with Carrie Tankersley, which was amazing,
"Mm,
and that was really cool. And I've got one with Dan Starkey as well, which I've never released.
wow,
Which I will release them because I think they're probably I don't think they're very time specific. They will come out at some point, and I will get around to edit them. It's just when I like you probably had the same as me, where it's like I got to a point where I just had to shut it out of my mind. Like I
mm,
didn't think about the podcast
I
at all for months. And when I did, like the
longest
anxiety was just horrible.
longest time I just decided to focus on Endgame and the Doctor and
Yeah.
the Doctors because actually it's a huge undertaking even now. I've and I just thought this is going to be my big project. This is going to be the project that it's got so many people in it. It's got so much love and care put into it from me. I'm going to dedicate this year to getting at least the first two acts out and putting my all into it, while doing a few smaller projects alongside it and still keeping the talk with sort of alive in my head. I did do a few episodes with a few people, a few friends that I'm gonna redo in year because they are time specific. Although
Mm.
releasing them now would be a good idea just as like sort of time capsule. But like one of the questions I used to ask people in that was, "What do you think of Shooty's new costume?"
Yeah.
When there's only
Yeah.
one, uh,
Yeah. We've
and I
had like 17 now.
to
So
be fair, I did predict it. I predicted. I said, I think it was like I hope he has a revolving wardrobe like Pertwee, and
oh, well, you nailed that.
I, my hopes were answered. I've always wanted a doctor to have uh fashion sense like Shooty's. What
Yeah.
did you think of the Church of on Ruby Road? What did you think of Shooty's?
I really, 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 really liked it. I mean, I'm not. It's very hard for me to critique Doctor Who. I
Hmm,
am the most easily pleased Doctor
same
Who
here. Same here.
on planet Earth. I'm just like, is Doctor Who on? Does it have the theme tune? I'm
I'm in.
happy.
I'm happy.
Like, I mean, obviously there's episodes that I did a full review thread thing
Hmm,
of all of New Who, which I still add to every now and then, and I'm going to do the 60th specials
yeah.
on Twitter, where I gave everything like a score out of 10, and I was quite harsh to a few episodes, but I still love them. Like I could sit and watch a 2 out of 10 Doctor Who episode and still adore it. But
Me,
yeah, Church on Ruby Road, I loved it. Um, I think it was the strongest story
Mm.
and episode ever. But I would say that I I think we're sort of in a situation where Shooty and Millie are so good on their own that I don't think we're really going to have a dud. Like, and that's not a slight on any previous era or anything like that. But I just think they have a screen presence that is sort of once in a lifetime or once in a generation.
I
Sort of
think
the kind of screen presence that David and Catherine had, basically.
yeah, I think it's I love all companion teams, companion Doctor dynamics. I think there's never really been
Mhm.
a bad one. And
Yeah,
you mentioned Doctor episodes. I also don't think there's been a bad Doctor episode, really. There's not been one that I haven't enjoyed in some way. And even
yeah,
ones that aren't exactly to my preference, I can understand and love and respect the craft, the passion of
yeah,
goes into
yeah.
different.
I'd say the list of Doctor Who episodes that I don't enjoy is
Mm.
very small.
Yeah.
Um, there's, I mean, there's the only one that I would refer go as harsh as to say that it's unwatchable is the Web Planet. Which, just because it's just the worst sensory overload ever.
Mm.
But it's just funny watching it. It's still funny, and I still find enjoyment from it. And I find that with a lot of the duds in Classic Who, I just love them, like,
Yeah,
because they're just
I
so
love
stupid and camp and silly.
Mm. I
Um,
I enjoy the Web Planet purely for that Sabi that goes into the camera. That
yeah,
is,
just that
uh,
sums it up, really. It's like, this is terrible,
and
but I
even
love it.
you can respect the craft that went into it at the
Oh
time.
God, yeah. That, I think that's what always baffles me when I see people giving. I don't think I've ever watched a piece of media that warrants a 0 out of 10.
Me neither.
Like, I see people giving zeros out of 10. And I know that people have their own
Yeah,
scales for what they deem to be out of 10, and like,
and it's
my one might be someone else's five. But I just think there is just a base level amount of effort that
yeah.
has gone into it that it can't be a one. Like, what, it can't be. I don't
I,
even think I've really given anything a one.
I
Only
don't
things that are like outright offensive to me. I like. I like.
distinctly offensive.
Um,
It's a one or a zero.
yeah,
I think if something to get above a zero has to have love and passion put into it.
I
And
think every episode of Doctor Who has,
yeah,
like,
I think
whether
99.9
it's turned out well or not.
yeah, 99.9999999 so on percentage of media has love and passion put into it and therefore does
Yeah,
not deserve lower than a two. I think
yeah,
that's my subjective opinion anyway. That's not an objective outlook on everything. It's just my
yeah.
view on things. And I don't think there is a Doctor Who episode that I really rate low. I think even like
No,
yeah, it's just again
yeah.
it
Well,
yeah.
like I said, when I did, I sort of went through and I gave every episode of New Who a score, like, out of 10.
Mm.
Um, and I've got a list. I've organized it into a list of, this is my order, my ranking of
Yeah.
every single episode of New Who, and like, the quality, because like, if you go to like the 100th episode in my ranking, it's still a 6.5 out of 10. Like, and everything above that is above a 6.5, and like, basically the whole top 50 is above an 8. So
Yeah.
it's like, that is just an immense
It's
level of quality in
yeah.
my eyes anyway. Other people would see, and I love comparing rankings because it's always fun, because there's like, I compared rankings with someone the other day, and an episode that I had as a 10 out of 10 that was in my top 10 episodes of all time was in their bottom three
Mm.
with a 1 out of 10. And
Yes,
that's just, you can get that with Doctor Who, and like every episode is someone's favorite and least favorite.
yeah. I find it
That's great.
extraordinarily difficult to rank stuff.
Yeah.
I, I you know, I just enjoy media and I enjoy making media and I
Hmm.
enjoy delving into all of that and the love and the craft and the immersiveness of it and the escapism and
Yeah.
the politics and everything that goes into everything is a joy to watch. And therefore, I used to rank stuff and I used to put numbers
Yeah.
next to stuff. And the majority of things I'd rank would be 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. But nowadays, I just tend to, yeah, go with the flow and enjoy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I have like on my notes app, I have every Big Finish I've ever listened to
Hmm.
ranked and scored. Every episode of New Who I've ever watched ranked and scored. I'm a bit of a nerd for it. It's just a neurodivergent thing. Because my aim was, and I'm building it at the moment, was I was like, I want an all-time everything, every medium. These are my top 10 episodes, like including books, Big
Yeah.
Finish, TV, classic, new, everything. And I'm working on it. I need to go through all of Classic Who again and give it all a score. Um, because I think my opinions will probably change on that drastically because it's been 3 or 4 years since I've seen most of those stories. So
Mm.
yeah, but I love going through stuff like that, and I might do something with it. I've been thinking that um like I mean I've been debating the future of Who Knew for a little while now. Still
Oh,
sort of undecided. It's up in the air.
yeah.
But I've been thinking as a little side thing, I might do across a year like little mini reviews of my top 50 episodes of New Who, just to sort of because we're like a year away from the 20th anniversary, which is terrifying, of Rose. And that's horrible in it. It's so scary. It messes with my brain. That's next year. Next year is the 20th anniversary of New Who. And yeah,
Brain can
yeah,
crash.
yeah. Messes with my brain as well. So I thought maybe to celebrate that, I'll do my top 50 episodes of New Who and
Mm.
give them all like a little 5-10 minute video.
Yeah.
Um
I think
and sort of like a rundown. But it's an idea. I might do it, I might not. I'm not putting the pressure on, but well, I've said it now. So people might want it, people might not want it, people might say, shut the fuck up, Josh. We don't want to hear that. But
I'm sure people would be more than happy to watch content like that. I mean, it
yeah.
I mean I would be. I very much look forward to
Well,
it.
thank you. There you go. There's one viewer.
Speaking
So
of content, nice segue there to something very peculiar. Now,
yes.
you are venturing into the world of fan audios, which
Oh
is
yeah.
very exciting. It's a very exciting world to be a part of. Welcome.
Thank you.
Greeting. So,
Yeah.
uh, without, spoiling a lot of what's to come, surprise-wise, uh,
Yeah.
what do you have planned? What do you have in
Well, look,
store?
I'm at the point now where I'm just so excited about it that I just want to spoil a few things. So you might get a few exclusives from me today. Um,
So what?
so it's actually this month 3 years since I started working on it, which is mental.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously nothing's been released, and we're still working on series one. But it's because of sort of the way we're approaching it, which I'll dive into. But The Peculiar Adventures of Doctor Who is the name of my upcoming Doctor Who fan audio series, which, like many others, is a new Doctor, new companions, loads of new characters, new stories. It's all very new.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think we do some quite interesting things.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd imagine
because I
so.
think, yeah, I mean, like the way that I approached it was that I wanted to make a full series of Doctor Who.
Mm.
Obviously, I can't do that in the video medium because I don't have thousands of pounds,
I mean, even if
millions of
you have
pounds,
pounds,
tens of millions of pounds as it costs now.
making fan films is
Yeah.
it can be very
Um,
consuming sometimes.
exactly. So fan films was a bit of a step too far for me, but it actually spawned a bit from Who Knew. It was specifically my chats with Billy Garrett John, because we were sort of talking about the talent in the fandom and
Mm.
how there's such an immense amount of talent
Oh,
across
oh,
different mediums that there are enough people there to be able to make a whole series of Doctor Who themselves,
yeah, yeah.
um, and sort of celebrating new talent. And I also had a chat with Dalecium, and this can be your first exclusive. Dalecium, Peter,
Yeah.
as
Wow.
he's also known, is the musical director for the Peculiar Adventures of Doctor
Oh,
Who. So
I mean,
that's your exclusive announcement, which
you
I'll
could,
probably be tweeting out at some point this month anyway. But
yeah.
Peter is sort of guiding the music. But
Wow.
there is going to be an open call for more composers to come on board, because we sort of want a composing team rather than one person, so that we can spread the load. Because it's like I said, it's a full series,
Mm.
so it's 12 episodes that are full length, but I think basically they're all at least 45 minutes to 50 minutes, but the episode lengths sort of vary.
Yeah.
And the pitch for it was, I wanted to make my sort of equivalent of a series one, or what
Mm.
they're doing now with Shooty, which is this is like if Doctor Who had gone away, this is how I would relaunch it.
Mm.
Um, so it's very much a fresh. It's quite surprisingly for a fan audio project, which you think is gravitated and aimed towards fans. It's quite a clean cut,
Mm.
jumping on point sort of series of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Um, but I think we actually do some very different things, because another part of the pitch was like, and I think you in particular are someone who's embraced this better than anyone, which is there are no rules. Like, you can do what you want. And I was actually listening to your talk with Mr. TARDIS, and I think there's different approaches you can take to it. And
Mm.
Will made Collateral of Ivanhoe, which is an amazing 13th Doctor audio drama. And he said, like, he sort of wanted to put himself in a box
Mm.
of, these are my constraints, and I'm going to write within these constraints to
Yeah.
sort of replicate what would happen if he was hired to write for the 13th Doctor era, which is a really cool way of approaching it.
Really cool.
And a very valid way of approaching it. You know, I'm not invalidating that at all, because he made an incredible story from it.
Yeah.
Um, and you were saying as well, like, you sort of are the opposite end of the scale, where it's like you're sort of bursting out of the box.
Yeah.
Um, and that's very much what Peculiar Adventures is doing as well.
Yeah, it's funny you bring all that. I mean, it's a great way of looking at things, and thank you for the exclusive on Dalek.
Yeah.
A very talented musician. Well worth checking out for everyone watching.
Just as this little side note, the theme tune is, I don't know if it's, I mean, I didn't make the theme tune. I know it's my theme tune for my series,
Yeah,
but I didn't make the theme tune. It is my favorite Doctor Who theme tune of all time. I think it is
looking forward to hearing it.
incredible, and it's very different. It's not.
Mm.
It's. Here's a little tease. I'd say, especially in the first 30 seconds, it's not instantly recognizable as the Doctor Who theme tune, which is,
Okay, okay.
again, sort of leads into sort of the mission statement for the series.
Mm.
It's
I think
um
it is
yeah,
an exciting outlook to have to go outside the box, and being inside the box is just as exciting. I think I nowadays, compared to when I did the interview with Mr. TARDIS, I tend to do both. Sometimes I give
yeah,
my
yeah,
the restrictions, sometimes I go fucking bonkers.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm throwing the first Doctor at the 4, 5, 6 and killing off Susan,
Mhm.
and the next thing I'm doing is bringing in 100 Doctors. Huh. It's great. Both outlooks are just fantastic, and I'm
Yeah.
very to hear about going outside the box.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
well, I think one way that it's gone out a little bit outside the box as well is that it's not like I'd say in terms of fan service, which I think people can treat as a dirty word sometimes, and it's not, especially in the realm of fan audio.
Mm,
Like, because that's the joy of fan audio is that you can put 100 doctors in a story if you want and go fucking bonkers, or like Miles Taylor can do a multi-doctor story with John Pertwee,
mm.
but
The most recent.
it is a very cool it, it's a very cool outlook to have that you can do anything.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, let's just do it all new.
Mm,
There's no that there's very, very, very few returning elements.
mm.
And all of my writers, the only rules that they were given were no Daleks, no Cybermen, no Time Lords, no Sonic. All
Okay.
gone.
Ooh,
So all gone.
interesting outlook. I'm
No
brilliant.
reference to them. And they pitch me stories. There's like I'll tease that there's a couple of returning monsters,
Mm,
but my sort of thing was if we're doing returning monsters, it's got to be something different with
yeah.
them, or it's got to be something obscure. Like I bring one back in one of my stories, in episode one, very obscure
Mm,
creature that even quite a few Who fans that I've spoken to needed reminding of what episode they were from. Um, but they sort of just fit the story.
yeah.
And then there's only one other returning creature, and other than that, everything is entirely new.
I mean, that's a really exciting concept. And I do love
Yeah,
the idea of starting a series with a returning monster, just like, Rose with the Autons, although they weren't exactly niche.
niche. No, I mean this is a very they're not even also the two creatures that we bring back
Mm,
as a little tease. They're not really the villains. So
okay, yeah.
technically, there's no returning villains, or there's no monsters returning as villains.
Mm,
Um, and I just said to the writers, like, because a lot of them just pitch stories, and I had like some examples of their work,
mm.
and then I just went, yeah, just go wild. You've
I,
got no restrictions,
yeah,
um, and let them write. I just said, make it as long as you want, as bonkers as you want, do whatever you want with it, other than those few things.
yeah.
And then if we want to rein it back afterwards, but I'm like, just push it to as far a limits as possible. So like I've had drafts back that, like, I mean, one particular draft. So one of my writers, Sam Gingle, who's an incredible artist as well. Um, I use his script as an example of pushing Doctor Who and the genre of sci-fi to its absolute limit. It was the most bonkers script I've ever seen in my entire life.
Um,
Um, like it took me months to read it just to get my head around it. And there
really?
was changes to be made, but it was well over, like I think it was like 130, 140 pages. It was
Wow.
color coded for different sections for it to make sense. Um, and another thing that I liked was there was swearing in it. I was like, yeah, go for it. We can do that because it's fan audio. Like we can push the limits of what Doctor Who can do, because I was like, you don't have the constraints of a budget, because there is no budget. There's no visual effects budget, so you can do whatever you want. You don't have constraints in terms of this is what you're allowed to do on the BBC at
Yeah.
prime time, because you can do whatever you want.
Oh,
Um,
that's
Obviously, there's some some like core restraints where it's like, okay, we've pushed it really far. Maybe it didn't land, so let's pull it back a little bit. But the point was like, let's get it as far as possible because then we know how far we can go, and
That
the how far we can go is very far.
that's one
Um,
I'm
so
planning on doing more with techno. A little bit of a scoop for
yeah,
everyone. Kind of pushing Doctor Who out of its comfort zone and doing things
yes,
that you can only do in sort of fan capacity. I love official stuff and working with official restraints as well.
mm-hmm.
Do it a bit here and there. I plan to do it a bit here and there going forward and be a little bit more professional about things, especially as I venture into the industry myself. But
Mm-hmm.
saying that, the last two techno fan films were just him on holiday. And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was you couldn't show that on TV because there's no real like it's the techno doctor doing cool shit on holiday.
yeah,
About the
exactly.
he's going on a camel, and it's just me documenting my holiday,
Yeah.
dressed in stuff that I just wear anyways. But it's shot really nicely and it's techno and here's a little bit of a scoop for an episode that I'm currently writing with Ryan Molyneux. I think that's how they pronounce his name. Sorry if I got that wrong, Ryan. Is a little scoop. I'm really fascinated with the idea of having a doctor who wants to be different and taking him into genres that wouldn't work with the actual show. So,
Mhm.
me and Ryan are currently writing the Doctor in a hospital drama.
Oh,
Um,
I like that.
he
That's
becomes
a great idea.
and he becomes a doctor, a literal doctor, and it was something that came up within a battles and fandom over on Jack Alexander. We were asked what shows would be crossover, and I wanted to give myself a challenge. The other two picked like Red Dwarf and Shaun the Sheep. I picked House MD because it was a show I was watching that it's really dark and it makes no sense, and my I really wanted to give myself an uphill battle because how you can argue that makes no sense. But then it
Yeah,
gave me the idea of, oh, what if we were to push the doctor out of that comfort zone? And thankfully, Ryan has some experience in that field and, you know,
yeah.
works with the NHS, I believe, at some point in his life. So, yeah,
It's cool.
I think it's,
I am. I think I got the same question, and
hmm,
I can't remember what I picked when I was on Battles and Fandom.
hmm.
Um, why can't I remember? I can't remember what I picked. It might have been his Dark Materials,
Well, that's a good
but
choice. Really good choice.
but yeah, no, that's a great idea. That's a really cool idea for a story.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love that.
in what happened because, of course, Doctor's quite. I won't spoil too much of it, but the Doctor is very time sensitive and knows when fixed points are. So putting him in
Mhm.
a hospital, let's just say it's going to get dark and interesting.
That's interesting. I like that. That's a good avenue to go down. I really, really like that.
I won't spoil any more.
Yeah,
Looking forward to the Peculiar Adventures Doctor. That's going to be incredible. Uh,
yeah. I'm so excited for it, and as well, like as much as we're pushing the envelope out a bit, and like I love. There's a few stories in there that are just they're just standard, really cool Doctor Who stories
that's
with
something I
a
as
with a
well.
fun TARDIS team. Like there's a few just one-off Monster of the Week adventures that are really fun. Um, but yeah, it's a different take. It's a different take.
Yeah,
Um, I like to think that I've done some so, like something quite refreshing and new with the
yeah.
Doctor.
I think
Um,
take is refreshing in you, but it'd be interesting to see how you do your series and how other writers come in and really add to your Doctor and develop it
yeah,
all.
the writers have been incredible. I mean, I tweet about them quite a bit, but like there's a lot. I love the main the trio of this Doctor in particular. Is very close to my heart.
Yeah,
And obviously I'm playing the Doctor, which so that might change depending on if my performance is terrible. But you've also got the companions, Billy and Violet. So they're from 1989, from Norwich, and Billy is a kid growing up in care. That I mean, funnily enough, these characters are 3 years old. Some things line up slightly with Ruby Sunday as well. Um, Billy is a kid in care with no parents, don't know whose parents it are, and Violet is a former kid in care who is now Billy's care worker. So she's sort of Billy sort of about 15, 16, sort of spent all of his life in the care system, and Violet has been his sort of mentor through that as an older care kid, and then going on to become a care worker in that same care home. So they've got a really lovely, interesting sort of brother sister friend dynamic. I think the dynamic's very much dysfunctional family of Violet. When they're all together, the Doctor's sort of thrust into being almost like a father figure to Billy, just through Billy's adoration of the Doctor, and Violet is sort of thrust into being the mother figure who's not very impressed with how dangerous the Doctor's lifestyle can be at times, especially when you're taking kids on board. So it's very reminiscent, I think, of one of the most underrated TARDIS teams, which is the Doctor, Romana, Adric, and K9, which is just like it's the dysfunctional family. It's like it's
Yeah,
mum, dad, son, and the family dog
I have
going on adventures in time and space, and they all bicker.
um
And
of like comparison, but you ever seen the show Hustle?
I haven't, no.
There's this I highly recommend it, by the way. Brilliant show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like there's this dynamic in the later seasons between a sibling duo who grew up without father figure or mother figure. And they kind of look the brother looks up to Adrian Lester's lead character, and the sister is very
Mhm.
uh
Oh,
sister,
that's interesting. Yeah, I because it's
you know,
yeah. I mean, it's quite a common dynamic that you get in TV shows. But I just really like the way that it manifests in terms of like I said, it's purely sort of the character arcs and the story arcs
yeah.
have sort of molded and shifted based on what the writers have done, because I've just given them this brief and let them run with it. And there's just so many little moments in it where they just get the characters to a degree that I thought only I could understand because they just live in my brain. Um, and there's just like I read one the other day, and there's one in basically in every script, but I read one in Catherine Wheeler's script for the audio series the other day, and it just I nearly stood up and cheered when I read it, because it was just like, oh, that is so Billy and that is so Violet, and they've just nailed it, and it's beautiful. So it's really nice, like creating characters and then letting other people
Oh,
add to them and mold them. Yeah, and it has sort of like there was I wouldn't say like the because it's like I said, I'm treating it like series one. There is a story arc that will hopefully go on into later series,
yeah.
and there's character arcs that complete and resolve and then unresolve and sort of that carry on. So yeah, I'm really, really, really excited for people to see it. It's
Yeah,
very much my passion project.
and
It's
it's got
taken a long time, but that's sort of because, like you were saying before, about wanting fan projects to be fun.
yeah,
Like I was like, I don't want this to be a job for anyone. All of these people are doing this
out of love.
for fun, out of love for the show. I'm not paying them. I'm not getting paid either. And it's like I don't want to put unnecessary pressures on people. Um, it's why, like, I mean, we've cast a lot of the roles, but the scripts aren't 100% there yet. Um, but I just want it to be. I just thought. I mean, probably for later series, we'll get more of a sort of a inner rhythm of things. But for this first series, it's like it just takes how long it takes. I'm not putting a date on it anymore. It might come out this year. It might come out next year. It might come out in 10 years. I'm not putting a date on it. when it's perfect, it's going to come out. So yeah,
It's a really good plan, and I'm sort of glad that you're respecting people wanting to have fun with it and sort of treat it as, just a fan project. That's the
yeah.
glory of projects, really, is that it's fun. I mean, John Dorney came in here and there was one tweet he put out saying we're all fan writers, and
Mm,
as and we had our discussion about that, and that's an outlook I very much reflect, even though of course there's more restrictions when it comes to Big Finish, and they're brilliant, obviously, and the restrictions only benefit the work they
mm,
do. Um, it's it's so lovely seeing the passion that goes into every project, official and unofficial,
mm.
and I'm really looking forward to seeing your series. It sounds exciting and new and fresh and just
Yeah.
overall very peculiar.
Yes, very well. Thank you, thank you. And I thought while I'm here, I may as well give you an exclusive. I've been itching to drop my favorite thing. One of my favorite things about Doctor Who is episode titles. I'm a
Mm.
proper nerd for episode titles and episode title drops. So I don't know how many should I do. I want to give you some episode titles, and I can't decide how many to do. I can't decide whether to do three or four.
Free.
Um, we'll do three. I'm gonna be reserved for now. Oh well, one of them's already out there anyway.
Mm.
So episode one is written by me, and it's called The Crooked House.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that sort of kicks off the whole thing. Um, oh, I'm excited. So this is I've never revealed these I've not revealed these to many people. Episode two is written by the wonderful Alfie Innes,
Oh, yes.
and I'll let everybody deduce what they think this is about. I think it's quite obvious from the title. It's a very long title as well. It's called Disorder in the Valley of the Kings.
What a
Yes. So
thing.
that is, yes, great title. There was, I think early days there was a very short discussion about shortening it. And then
Mm.
we both went, no, let's
No.
make, if anything, let's make it longer.
Mm.
So yeah, it's a long title, Disorder in the Valley of the Kings by Alfie Innes.
Mm.
And then episode three is called The Panopstian Conspiracy by, again, another wonderful writer, Dominique Gagnon, um, who is fantastic. I believe Dom's going to be part of Galley One, doing sort of I think a talk about what they wrote for their dissertation, which I really want to read. So very, very exciting. But yeah, that's the first three episodes. I'll give you that for now.
Oh,
The
that's great.
Crooked House, Disorder in the Valley of the Kings, and the Panopstian Conspiracy. And I just want to tease more stuff. Ask me a question. Give me something to tease. What can I ask me a question? I'll see if I can say something because I want to. It's all bursting in my brain.
Oh, you put me on the spot a bit there. What can I ask? What can I get you to spoil? Okay. The first three letters of one of the villains, or something, or one of the villains, or just something to do with a villain. Everyone loves a villain. I love a villain.
Um. Okay. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm just picking one. This is fun. I like this.
I know. Yeah.
Uh. MAG.
MAG. Okay, you heard it here first, guys. The villain of
No, that's wrong. I've spelt it wrong. MAR. But
MAR.
now you know there's a G in it. So
Well, I
you
look.
may be able to figure that out if you remember the casting call, because there were a lot of tweets about a particular person who's in the casting call, um, and what their potential role could be. And that will have spoiled it. But yes, they
Yes,
are a villain.
I look forward to seeing. Well,
So you'll see that. And it's I think another thing that I wanted to do was from a standpoint of specifically a political standpoint, I wanted to set my stall out early. So episode 1, if you are a slightly conservative leaning person, I wouldn't listen because you'll just get pissed off. So
Yeah, that's the same with the majority of Doctor Who's.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, for some reason they still love it. Like, you know, all these right wingers want to hark back to the good old days of Planet of the Ood, as if that wasn't political.
Age
But
of World War Three.
yeah, there's not. Yeah, it's a very political story to
I
start off.
very much
And
sure.
maybe from those 3 letters you can figure out why. But it's fun. I think it's funny and it's
Oh
a bit
God,
silly.
I just figured it out.
Yeah, don't say it. Don't let people
Uh,
figure it out in their own time. But we can talk about it off camera.
uh,
Yeah.
well, I very much look forward to it. That's going to be
Yeah,
brilliant.
I hope people like it. It's really silly.
Yeah,
Very very goofy, but I had a lot of fun writing it. A
I
lot of
very
fun.
look forward to it. That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Um, Going back to more podcasty sort of thing. Podcasty sort.
Yes.
Um, my next question is sort of what do you kind of look for in a podcast guest? Is there any like specific qualities that kind of jump out to you as the ideal guest to bring on a show?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Um, I mean, someone who wants to come on is
Mm,
always nice.
yeah, that's also
Um, Obviously, I mean, you know, there has to be a sort of a base level of we have to have something, especially with the format of Who Knew. It's
yeah.
sort of talking about your journey with Doctor Who and what, like, a lot of that links into things that people have created and things that they've done. So, you know, I'm sure there's people who'd want to come on the podcast, but like there has to be something that you're working on or you've done.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, it's great getting fan creators on because they're always working on something.
Mm,
It's great getting artists on and great getting people who worked on the show, obviously,
yeah.
because you're never going to run out of stuff to talk about.
No, no, no.
Um, and yeah, I mean, there's just, I mean, I've cast a wide net, if I'm honest. I
Mm,
think it. I often I've had a lot of praise, which is very nice about how many good guests I've got on.
really have.
And I have got a lot. I look through the list and I'm impressed.
Mm,
And you know, a lot of people ask me what's the secret. I'm like, there isn't a secret. I just ask people.
yeah.
Um, and you just ask people. You've got to ask people in a specific way. Like, you know, I try and give them as much detail and background on the show as I can without rambling at people. And often when it comes to people on the show and stuff, you're dealing with agents. Um,
Yeah.
so I can assure people, however well it looks like I've done, I've had a hell of a lot more no's than I've had yeses.
Same here.
Um, a
Same here.
hell of a lot more.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot more and way more blanks than I've had no's. Like you just I think I've probably sent upwards. When I started the show, I had like a list of like 300 people that I was sort of working through to try and get on. And I
Mm,
reckon I've cleared through a lot of them now. And like I said, I've had some nice. I've never really had a bad response. Some agents can be difficult to just get past because it's like I you know from like interviews and stuff like that, people who have been involved in the show, who are fans of the show, and you know that they would enjoy
mm.
sort of the chat, not to be a bit big headed, but it's like, you know, they're not going to hate it. Like, and they they're like a realistic guest for me to get, but then the agent is sort of a brick wall in the way of that, and they're sort of saying no on people's behalf before it's even reached them.
There has
But
Yeah.
And then again, a lot of agents that I've spoken to have been lovely
Oh
and
yeah. Well,
have sort of been very welcoming and very forthcoming in getting me in touch with these people to get them on board. Um, but in terms of what makes a good guest, I just anyone who I think it's primarily being a doctor, a fan of the show as well. I
yeah.
think a lot of people suggest guests to me,
Mm,
and I look at them and I'm like, and there's been a couple of times where I've had it similar to this. That I don't think it's ever resulted in a bad episode or a bad interview or something. But you have to acknowledge that Doctor Who isn't everyone's everything like it is to us. Like to some people who've worked on the show, it's just a job, and it's like that's fine because it is to them. Um, but it's not. You're not going to get a great answer to what does Doctor Who mean to you if it's just a job to them. So I think if you can separate who are the people who are involved in the show but very passionate. So someone like Sophie Aldred is perfect because
I
she is like she's
uh,
so lovely.
yeah.
And when I yeah, she's incredible. And like when I have some people might notice that in some episodes there isn't a DVD collection or a corridor of fame, which is the features that I do where people pick their favorite episode or like an episode that is quintessential Doctor Who to them, or the corridor of fame is where they pick someone to enter like a hall of fame. um, some people don't do that because they're in the industry, they don't really feel comfortable like pinpointing something like this is great or this, because then people will twist it as this is bad,
Yeah.
or highlighting certain people over others.
I
That's
mean,
fine
part
and
of the
that's
reason
okay.
why I don't do that anymore is because I want to venture into the industry, which is why I
Yeah.
tend to rank things or pick favorites. Not just because, it's a personal thing where I just don't, I enjoy everything, but it's also like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I understand why people in the industry don't
Yeah,
necessarily.
like so I just because it like, and a lot of people have like, but people, not many people have had issues with it. And the people who have had issues with it have just said, no, it's not really for me. And I've gone, yeah, okay, that's fine. Um, but when Sophie Aldred came on, I I sort of passed the message through her agent and gone, we do these features. Um, I don't know if she'd be interested. And I never really got a concrete yes or no. So I was like, I sort of had to plan two podcasts. I was like, here's a podcast without that and a podcast with, because I'm not going to know until I get on the call with her. And I've only got an hour. So I've got to make the most of the time.
Yeah.
And I got on the call and I just went, I don't know if your agent passed it on, but we do a couple of features. And Sophie literally picked up a notepad and she just went, yeah, DVD collection, Corridor of Fame. Very excited for them. I've got my picks. I was running through all of the list. She was like, I was going through all the people that are already in there, and I was like, oh damn it, someone's already taken my ones, and so I had to go through and pick other ones. And she was like, yeah, can't wait. And I was
Oh,
like, that's amazing because you're just so passionate and so lovely about it, about indulging this nerd stuff. Because she just loves the show, and that's yeah. To go back to your original question, people like that, people who
I mean,
even if the show was in some way a job to them, they're very indulgent in the fact that it's not just a job when you're on Doctor Who. It's sort of bigger than like you go in and film for a few weeks. It's a big thing.
mm,
Um, and they understand the love that people have for the show and they embrace it. I think that's the best guests to have.
yeah. I interviewed Sophie straight after Power of the Doctor, really. It was
Yeah.
that obviously changed a lot of things because
Yeah.
99% of my questions were about Power of the Doctor. I don't think
I can imagine. Yeah. Like me and the doctors. Like,
I
you
did
know, it
have
just
questions and it is noticeable. And I would change a few things if I could, but I wouldn't change the fact that Sophie was on it because Sophie was absolutely lovely and we had such lovely chats.
yeah.
And it genuinely was like, I know we're not supposed to pick favorites, but again, talking to
Yeah.
Sophie was. it was just legendary. It was just
Yeah.
lovely.
Until now, obviously. Now this is your new favorite. This
Obviously,
episode is the
although
new pinnacle.
I do have to
I'm
place
joking.
Annie above these stuff. It's just not
um,
has to be my favorite.
yeah. No, yeah, people like that. And Katie Manning's just the same as well. She's just
Annie, you can't.
amazing. She's chaos, but she's unbelievable. I love the woman. Um, yeah, I've been really, really, really lucky in that I've never had a dud. I've never had one that hasn't really worked. I've had technical problems a lot, but
Same.
um, everyone's been so lovely about it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's getting me emotional now because this is where I'm like, oh, I miss it. But then I also have to, strike that balance of,
Yeah.
is it the right time? I have a lot to do. I have a lot on at the minute. I'm writing a script for someone else's fan audio series. There's a little exclusive, which I'm sure people will find out about if the script is any good and they decide to make it. And then I'm also writing peculiar adventure scripts, and I'm sort of, there's a Discord with about 100 people in, and there's often questions in there from actors. There's read-throughs. There's other scripts that need reading, and also life. And I work full time, so it's a lot to do, and I don't want to overload myself. But maybe Who Knew will come back in the future. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll come back in a different form. That's something that I've thought about. Maybe it'll come back as
Interesting.
a live stream thing or a different format, or maybe just a new podcast that's different. I don't know, but
I,
I'll,
yeah.
I'm thinking about it, which, I mean, if I'm honest, about 6, 7 months ago, in my eyes, I was like, it was like that scene in An Adventure in Space and Time where they say to Sydney Newman, like, kill Doctor Who. And my brain was just like, kill it, kill Who Knew, do
Mm.
it, get rid of it. And now I've mellowed on that a bit.
Yeah.
I don't really want to kill it.
Yeah.
I want to keep it
I think
in my
that's
back pocket for a while and see what I want to do with it. So it
yeah.
was going to be dead, and I was going to end it and do like a last hurrah and then finish.
Mm.
And I might still do that, but I don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows?
Uh, yes, I think it's an interesting outlook. I do love that you're keeping it on the back burner. I think that's great for your mental health, and also great that it leaves it open. I think there's always a testament to leaving things open to go back to. But even if who
Yeah,
does suddenly, go on its last hurrah, as you put it, there's always opportunity to start new podcasts and new live
exactly.
projects. I think the end leads to new beginnings, as it were.
Exactly. Like I love, like I've been on, like I love doing this,
Mm.
like, and just having a chat. Um, because I don't have to edit this, so this is fun. And like I've been on Come Along Pond, their
Mm.
podcast, great podcast. I've been on there a couple of times, and that's a heaps of fun because you just get to watch an episode of Doctor Who and have a big old laugh about it. And I'm really enjoying doing that at the minute. Just hopping on, having a chat here and there on other people's podcasts, and then maybe I'll do mine again at some point.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I love going on other people's podcasts as well. It's always a joy.
yeah,
I was recently on the Overton Audio's podcast and stuff like that, and I'm
yeah.
on Jack Alexander's. A little bit of it. Actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to share that. I'll be back on it very soon. I'll say that.
Oh, exciting. Well, you were on my list for Who Knew for ages, and then basically had a mental breakdown. So you were going to be on Who Knew at some point. I don't know if I'd ever told you that, but
Oh, you did. I
um,
mean, ah,
yeah, yeah.
oh,
So sorry about that. I also announced that Troy from um, who's there was going to be
Troy is someone I've always wanted to bring on, and we've had so many discussions and tried to do it so many times, but that was when I was hitting my burnout.
yeah.
Just
And I feel really bad because I announced Troy, and then
mm,
like and then Who Knew died for a bit, and it's like we never recorded. And I'm sure I will get Troy on at some point, and Troy loves to point out that my release schedule is rather inconsistent, and to that I'd say, you know, you're working with a crispy pro. Like, there's two of you, there's only one of me, and
Mm.
I'm not a really cool Australian guy or someone who's had my face eaten by David Tennant
Yeah,
on Ant and Dec's Limitless Win.
I remember.
So I'm a nobody. I'm nothing. So you guys don't
No,
kick the little guy, okay?
you've got, you're brilliant. You've done a lot, and you deserve a break. You're more than
Thank you. I'm in my 14th Doctor resting era at the moment.
the therapy era.
This is my therapy era. I'm in my self-care. I'm living in a house with Wilf shooting moles at the bottom of my garden.
Yeah,
That is very much the era that I've been in over the past sort of 6 months, just 6, 7, 8, 9, trying to sort myself out. And it's
yeah,
working. So yeah,
yeah.
but when I was like, yeah, maybe I'll have a bit of spare time, and now I've got a wedding to plan. So,
Yes. Like,
oy,
um, sort of, a sort of penultimate question, as it were.
yeah.
Um, we've talked about it many times. We've danced around the subject, but it's a question that I ask every single person that comes on this show, and I discuss it with every single one of them. Um, it's about burnout, which is something I always love to ask people about because everyone has their own coping mechanism when it comes to burnout. Um, we've discussed if you have experienced it, so I'll avoid that question. But how
Hmm.
do you deal with burnout? What's your sort of outlook on it?
Um, that's quite a hard one to answer because I'm still doing it and I'm still sort of figuring it out. And it's like, I mean, I know exactly why I'm burning out.
Mm.
It's because I've got unmedicated ADHD and I hyperfixate and I get tunnel vision and I obsess and I become a perfectionist about the things that I hyperfixate on, which is what happened with the podcast. So I burn out very easily. And I also want to juggle loads of projects at the same time when my brain isn't accustomed to functioning that way. And I have to sort of tackle things, I have to juggle things lightly. I can't overload myself. Um, so I mean, it's self care is just a big thing. It's just, look, especially when it comes to fan projects, like there is no pressure. Any pressure that you have is invented in your own brain. It is all coming from you. And I mean, you may get the odd tweet here and there that's like, oh, there's not been an episode for ages. And then you can just say, yeah, and there won't be. You've just got to brush those kinds of little comments off and not let them hit you because 99.9% of the pressure is coming from you. And you do not need to put that much pressure on yourself with a fan project, especially. Um, I know, and if you're setting yourself on unnecessary deadlines, don't
Yeah.
like, or you're creating schedules that are unmanageable, which is what I did. I was like, there's going to be a podcast every week. That isn't manageable. I've got a network, I've got to record them, I've got to edit them, which is a very lengthy process. And then you've got all the scheduling of the uploads, you've got tweeting about it, plugging it, blah, blah, blah. And then you start again, and you've got to do all of that on a weekly cycle whilst working 40 hours a week and having a social life and relaxing. It's not realistic. So you have to set realistic targets and allow yourself the breathing room to adjust your targets if you need to. Like if I brought Who Knew back now, I'm not going to be doing it weekly. I'm never going to do a weekly podcast again. That I've come to terms with that. It was hard to come to terms with because it's what I want to do. but I can't. It's just I physically cannot do it unless I was getting paid a shitload of money by Spotify, and it was my primary thing that I was doing every week. But
Have you seen that?
who knew don't pay the bills, so I can't.
You've
You
seen
know.
that video from Tom Scott about him retiring, sort of.
Yes, yes, great video,
Yeah,
and it really resonated with me because I was like, that is beautiful. Like it's just a beautiful way to, and that's sort of like how, even though I've not got I haven't got a, the legacy that Tom Scott's fingernails got online or like in terms of media presence or whatever, but just that sort of perfect, just giving himself a little bit of just a bit of self-indulgence and self-care and just recognizing I did a good thing, the good thing's done,
brilliant.
now I can go and do other good things, it's not the only good thing. um I thought it was a really nice video. If anyone's not seen it, I mean, I feel like you need a bit of context as to who Tom Scott is and stuff, but it's a
Yeah,
really nice way of sort of talking about how much pressure we put on ourselves and how we build our lives around workloads and stuff when sometimes there's more important things like family and friends, and the family are the friends and family we make along the way and all that
I think
gooey nonsense.
there's a lot of yeah. It's a brilliant way of putting things. Although I will say there is a layer to it that if you're working with someone else, if someone else, say for example, if someone else is you're playing your doctor, as per se, communication,
Yeah,
burnout. Don't leave
and
for a long time.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna apologize now to everybody that I work with on the audio series. It's never been my strongest point, and I do try, but again, it's all. I'm not blaming it on my ADHD, but it does have an impact in that sometimes things just leave my head. Like I had it actually last night. Someone messaged me, and I was like, I thought I sent that message 3 months ago, and I never sent it.
And
And I was convinced I'd done it, but I hadn't.
mm,
Um, and that's just how my brain works.
yeah,
So I just had to apologize. But yeah, so everyone who's involved in the audio series, you may be watching this thinking, what's going on? Not heard anything for a while. I am I'm thinking about it every day, and it's getting there, and I'm trying to be better at communicating and stuff like that.
I for one think you're destined to do brilliant things, and I cannot wait to see
Thank
the
you.
the future projects that you go on to do. It's very exciting to hear about them all. And yeah, thank you for joining me. If you have anything to promote, of course, whether it be Who Knew or Peculiar, by all means, go ahead now, and I'll put the music.
Yeah, I mean, you can listen to the back catalogue of Who Knew on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There's loads of video versions on YouTube as well, and a couple of other odd little things on there. If you type in Who Knew a Doctor Who podcast, I'm sure it'll come up. And if you follow me on Twitter at Josh Ryan Carr, um, that's where all the updates about the audio series will be going. Like I said, obviously me and Dalekium, who are working on the music, we're going to be looking for composers very soon. As scripts are coming in, we can start getting sort of rough edits together for some episodes, and some episodes are at different stages. Obviously, some are still being written, some are ready to record. But we sort of just want to get a team together so that everyone can get a feel for what we're doing, which is sort of what I've done with the actors as well. Everyone's in a Discord, everyone chats now and then just about Doctor Who and fun stuff. It's a bit of a nice little community while we wait for things to happen when they naturally happen. And there's going to be other things that I'm looking for, like artists, graphic designers, pop musicians, as well as composers, like people who can actually play instruments, because that there's another little hint. There are multiple episodes in which music plays a very key part. So we may be looking for musicians as well. yeah, loads of people. There's going to be more roles coming out as well for like acting roles, and then as soon as all that's sorted, it's on to series two, and I'm going to be looking for stories for series two. So follow me there if you want to get involved. The aim is to get as many people involved as possible, as humanly possible, without it being chaos.
Yeah.
Um, and it's open to anybody and everyone. I want to hear from. I'd love to hear from from voices, underrepresented voices,
Yeah.
and have it as a platform where they can tell their stories. If you have a story that you want, like if you're trans and you have a trans Doctor Who story that you want to tell, then I'd love you to use the Peculiar Adventures as a platform for that. Or if you're trans and you have a non-trans story that is just a story about silly aliens that you want to tell, you can also do that. Everyone is welcome, and everyone's welcome to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But that goes for everybody, not just trans people. That was just the first example that popped into my brain. So
A lot of wonderful, fantastic trans creatives out there in the Doctor Who community. A lot of
exactly, yeah.
brilliant people, and I can definitely point a few in your direction.
Oh,
Um,
please do, please do. I would love to. I'd love that. Like I said, yeah, trans people, people of color, um, anyone who feels underrepresented, um, I or just wants to write. Anyone who just wants to have a go at writing a Doctor Who story. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from your ideas, and if it works, then we'll do something.
and
Like, be
record
great.
all of that also relates to techno. Unrepresented
Mm-hmm.
are more than welcome. Always, everyone is welcome to tell stories of techno anywhere, anywhen. You're always more than welcome, and I'm
Yeah,
always. I think that's the joy of fan creativity is that there are
yeah,
so many different areas, so many different everyone. It's just a place for everyone, and I feel like
yeah.
if not respected, then we are reflecting the core values that Doctor Who sets for us all. The standard.
Well said. Well said.
Right. Well, thank you for joining me, Josh. I'll put all the
Thank
links.
you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I've absolutely loved this. You're a very good host.
Thank
Very,
you.
very good host.
This is the first time I've really done one of these in the new year where I haven't sort of fluffed or kind of. I'm
We're
starting to get back into the rhythm of it a bit more
we're
now.
both a bit podcast rusty, but I think we've done well. We've done all right. And you've done very, very well.
Thank you so much. It's
You've
been
asked some great questions. You're good at this. You're good at everything. You irritate me. You're good at too much. Stop it.
I don't know how to respond to any of this, so I'm just going to end the podcast. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you, Josh, for that. Thank you for all of this. It's been brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, comment. Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye.